Babe, make sure she has everything she needs. I cannot be bothered. And don't try to disappear while I'm doing this. No, I'm saying just try not to disappear because.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the screener portion of the workflow for the SEN.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We will be getting started in just a second. I just see a few folks still trickling in. Again, good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Jaleesa Rodriguez. I am the SEN Program Director at HVCC. This is our first session of 2026, resuming the updated cadence. We are now hosting the screening portion of the workflow in a separate session, and we will be utilizing some previously recorded trainings to assist us through this session. I will have the demo environment at the end available to do any reviews, answer any questions. But again, this training is specific to the screening portion of the SEN workflow, step one in the member journey. Later on today, we will be covering the navigation portion, which is step two. And then later in the afternoon, taking action on referrals as contracted providers, which is step three in the member journey. So I'll give it maybe another minute since folks are still entering the meeting, and then I'll go and shift gears. Before we get started, does anyone have a question regarding the training, what we're capturing? And if not, we will get started in just about a minute. So a few folks entering the meeting, since this is a shorter workflow, I can allow for at least another minute to folks enter.
72 people.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Within that screening workflow, we will learn how to locate a member's ingested record in Unitas. We will verify members' insurance. We will capture consent. We will screen the member and send referrals if we are at a screening only organization. We will also provide guidance as to next steps if your organization is providing both screening and navigation. And a lot of folks still entering the meeting. I am going to begin sharing screen to start the training.
You know what I realized? Um, the oregano, oil of oregano. I was reading it up this morning. I think it's giving because it gets bloating.
Okay, we're ready, Daria?
Weird, like digestive
Yes.
feelings.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. We'll be initiating the screening process on the
I feel
Unitas
like that's what I'm
platform.
feeling.
First step in locating a member's ingested record to initiate the workflow is to locate the member's record through the plus sign on the Unitas dashboard. Even though there's a magnifying glass that will come in handy later on in the workflow, for the first search of the member on the platform, you are searching members through the plus sign. So you would select the plus sign and you have four options: new referral, new client, new screening, and new task. You are always selecting new client. Remember, even though this is a member that you may have worked with in the past, they are new clients to the SEN, to the social care network, to Unitas. So you're able to search your member through first, last name, and date of birth, and you will search the Unitas platform for an existing record. I apologize. I'll start the training again. There is a large amount of folks still entering the meeting and it's super disruptive. So I prefer to give it another minute or so. Again, training starts at 10 a.m. We will have to not allow folks into the meetings moving forward since this becomes very, very disruptive once we begin. So apologies for those that have been here since 10 a.m. for the start of the training, but again, a large amount of folks still coming in, and that is not allowing me to proceed in the back end with the training video and allowing folks in. Again, reminder, training starts at 10 a.m. promptly. We will not allow folks in moving forward as this holds up the entire group and we've run out of time to take questions towards the end. I'm going to try to shift gears. Okay, let me go back and try this again.
Hundred and four people.
Okay, we're ready, Daria?
It's not just all for
Yes.
GSP1.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. We'll be initiating the screening process on the Unitas platform. First step in locating a member's ingested record to initiate the workflow is to locate the member's record through the plus sign on the Unitas dashboard. Even though there's a magnifying glass that will come in handy later on in the workflow, for the first search of the member on the platform, you are searching members through the plus sign. So you would select the plus sign and you have four options: new referral, new client, new screening, and new task. You are always selecting new client. Remember, even though this is a member that you may have worked with in the past, they are new clients to the SEN, to the social care network, to Unitas. So you're able to search your member through first, last name, and date of birth, and you will search the Unitas platform for an existing record. The Unitas platform is going to search for an existing record because they are ingesting on a weekly basis the MEF file with Medicaid eligibility information. Unitas is also ingesting the ESMF file with member enhanced population information. So never are we manually creating a record for a member. All Medicaid recipients should already have an existing record in Unitas. When you're searching for an existing record, you'll see that the platform does give the option of creating new clients. We never create a new client. You will not be able to invoice for your work. You will not be able to connect the member to enhanced services. This will pretty much be a blank record in the back end. It wouldn't have the appropriate social care coverage. So even if you've got the member in front of you with their insurance information and everything you'll need to create the record, we never manually create the record. You want to locate the existing record that has been ingested with all of the members' information. Once you select use this record, We'll open up the record to allow you to make edits to any demographic information. If there's an updated email, telephone number, modes of communication, recommendations on times to connect with a member, those are all relevant to update in this page. What we're never updating or editing is the member's insurance information. As mentioned, this is already being ingested by the state file. So all of that information stays as is unless you've updated any demographic, and you're able to save clients. Once you save clients, first stop is to capture consent. This first consent is a Unite Us platform consent, and there's several ways to provide the member with that consent. Most popular is the on-screen consent by attestation, which we'll review in just a second, but you are also able to send a request by text, by email, or on-screen signature of the members in office. You can also print out a paper version to upload or an audio file. Most popular form of collecting attestation is the on-screen consent by attestation, which allows the screener to read the script to the member, giving you prompts of the specific response you're looking for to really capture consent on the platform. Once you've read this specific script consent to the member, you are able to sign as the screener or navigator. This is not asking for the member's signature unless it's asking for the screener signature. Today I'm Brianna, and I'm able to sign that consent as the screener that read the script to the member, and that will automatically bring me into the member record, and you'll see up here that it flags green for consent accepted. It first lands us in the member overview page. This is a new member, so really not much information for us to review here. This would be more relevant further down in the workflow. So the first stop we make in this member's record is in the Profile tab. The Profile tab includes members' demographic information, which you can also edit and update from this Profile tab. Want to call out that in the live environment, you will get very important information under enhanced population and clinical condition. I'm in the demo environment, so I don't get any information under these areas, but in the live environment, if your member's part of an enhanced population, so pregnant, postpartum, health home enrolled, at-risk youth under 18, all of those enhanced populations will be listed here. That is a requirement for eligibility to enhanced HRSN services. So in the live environment, seeing information here is just an extra box checked off towards eligibility criteria. So again, just calling out that in the live environment, you will see additional information in this area. The member profile will also indicate household size, marital status, but then another very important area is the member insurance information. And it'll flag here if the member is straight Medicaid or fee-for-service, FFS, or if the member is enrolled in a managed care plan. I'm in the demo environment. NY Health Plan is not a familiar name. It's a demo insurance. In the live environment, you'll see more familiar MCO carriers as MVP, Health First, United, Fidelis. But if the member is Medicaid fee-for-service, it'll also indicate here. In the live environment, you will see a verify insurance option that you're able to click, and that is real-time eligibility check. That's RTE on the platform. No need to run an ePaces search to verify that your member is Medicaid eligible as of today. Instead, on the live environment, you're able to click verify insurance, and that will conduct a real-time eligibility check, and it will create a timestamp of today's date. It'll indicate green check stating member is eligible as of today. So that's a really cool feature that was recently added. You won't see it in the demo environment, you'll see it in the live environment. And finally, a very important call out: before we start screening anyone, we want to ensure that the member already has an existing social care coverage for screening and navigation. This has at least given us the green light to start step one and go into step two with our Medicaid members. Regardless of full eligibility criteria, Medicaid members are still eligible to be screened and complete an eligibility assessment. It's really based on whether they are part of that enhanced population and meet the full criteria if they will be eligible for those level two services. And that's when the workflow uh, separates a little bit. And we go into that more in depth in the navigation training. So for purposes of screening, we are ensuring that our member already has an existing social care coverage for screening and navigation. This isn't something we're adding. This is something that should already be in the ingested record that you've located with an enrolled status. Also want to make sure that the social care coverage is linked to HVCC, Hudson Valley Region, and it'll indicate FFS or MCO. So both members are still eligible to move on with screening. You'll just know that that FFS member is not going to qualify for enhanced services further down in the workflow. But for the purposes of starting the screening, this member has everything that we need to initiate the process. So from the profile tab, we will click into the screening tab because we want to ensure that this member has not been screened before. Members are only eligible for one annual screening, and they could qualify for a rescreening in the case of a significant life event. I've stopped the video because there's a large number of folks that had not been able to enter the meeting. I'm admitting everyone now. For those of you just joining the meeting, reminder that the training starts at 10 a.m. sharp. Any late admissions, you would not gain access into the trainings as I have to stop the trainings to pivot over to admit folks. So please ensure that your teams are arriving on time as I cannot stop the training for I think a second or third time at this point to allow folks in. I'll go back to sharing screen. Is reporting a significant life event, such as loss of housing, loss of benefits, maybe the member is now pregnant, are all significant life events. So that would be an instance where even if the member was screened several months ago, you are able to rescreen them based on that significant life event. For now, this is the first time our member is connecting to the social care network. So we are able to click on to add new screening. You'll see three separate options here: accountable health, communities HRSN screening, NY 1115, AHC screening, and prepare screening. We are always using NY 1115 AHC screening for the social care network. And before we start the screening, we are capturing consent a second time. This consent is specific to the screening. So the screener will read this language to the member. If the member accepts, that allows them to move into the screening. If the member declines consent, that is the end of the member journey. And that opens up the AHC tool, which will capture unmet needs around nutrition, housing, transportation, and enhanced care management. So we'll quickly run through the screening tool. What is your living situation today? We'll say our member has a steady place to live. Of course, all screenings will look different. It's based on your member's response. Think about the place you live. Do you have problems with any of the following? Since home remediation and home modification services are part of SEN, you will see some of those options listed here. We'll say our members not experiencing housing issues. Next question is around utilities. In the past 12 months, has the electric, gas, or oil or water company threatened to shut off your services? Say that's not the case for our member. Within the past 12 months, you worried that your food would run out before you had money to buy more. That was often true for our member. Within the past 12 months, the food you bought just didn't last and you didn't have money to get more. That was often true for our member. In the past 12 months, has lack of reliable transportation kept you from medical appointments, meeting, work, um, or getting things needed for daily living? With this particular question, I want to call out that transportation through the social care network is specific to linkage to other HRSN services. So even though this question implies that transportation can be utilized for medical appointments, it wouldn't be able to be used for medical appointments. That's duplicative to an existing service, Medicaid transportation. So HRSN transportation is specific to connecting members to other services. So for a member that's maybe eligible for nutrition counseling and transportation, they can use this transportation to get to the nutrition counseling appointments, not to general medical appointments or activities of daily living. So this is a general stated question because the AHC tool is used in other areas beyond the social care network. So just wanted to call that out. Do you want help with finding or keeping a job? Do you want help with school or training? How often does anyone, including family and friends, physically hurt you? There are several questions around interpersonal violence. How often does anyone, including family, friends, insult you? How often does anyone, including family or friends, threaten to harm you? How often does anyone, including family or friends, scream or curse at you? Does the member have serious difficulty walking or climbing stairs? We'll say yes for our member. Does the member have difficulty with dressing and bathing? Yes. Is the client interested in receiving supports for identified unmet health-related social needs? Very important that they flag yes. Even though the screening is only in one language, interpreters can be used, and it'll ask that in these questions. So you're able to indicate in any case that the language conducted was not English because you utilized an interpreter, you're able to indicate that. Who responded to the screening? Children are eligible to be screened. Entire families of Medicaid recipients are able to be screened. So there are scenarios where you may be getting responses from a parent or guardian. You may be getting responses from a spouse or a caretaker based on the member's condition and age and so forth. So here we spoke directly to our member. And of course, screenings can take place in person over the phone. We'll say we connected with our member over the phone. Um, Screenings cap at 2 units. So anything between 7 and 22 minutes is considered 1 unit at $17.50. Anything 23 minutes and over is capped at 2 units, $35. So whether it took you 23 minutes or a full hour, it'll still cap at those 2 units. Very important, you incorporate the time it takes to explain the program, the time it takes to capture consent as you are collecting time spent. We've had organizations invoice for $0 because they've documented 5 minutes for the screen. And it's pretty straightforward. It's 12 questions, so you may very well get through this fairly quickly, but still take into consideration time it takes to get the consent to explain to the member the program so you are able to invoice accurately. I'll say all of that then took me 25 minutes to explain to the member, capture consent, get through the screening tool. Once I click complete screening, that will automatically generate an invoice in the back end. So I don't have to worry about manually going in and invoicing because this is my member's initial screening. So that initial screening, that annual screening is going to automatically generate an invoice. Whereas if I was screening this member a second time due to a significant life event, that auto invoicing would not take place. I would have to manually do that. So you'll see here that following that submission of the screening, it will flag if a member has any unmet needs. This is a requirement to move on to step 2, which is navigation. In the case that members do not flag with an unmet need, this is the end of the member journey. You're not referring the member for navigation. However, most Medicaid recipients will flag with an unmet need. So here I want to quickly call out for organizations that are screening only, which I don't believe is relevant to the group in this training today, but there are organizations in the network that are only screening. For screening only orgs, they will go to search for resources because they have to send a referral for navigation. They are only screening, and this member is now in need of step 2 in this workflow, which is navigation. So organizations in the network that are only providing screenings have to go to search resources, and they will search 1115 member navigation. And that will provide screeners with organizations within our network that are providing navigation services. So they're able to send these referrals to organizations providing navigation within our network to move on to step 2 with the member. You're able to click onto the organization to read a little bit more of the services that they are providing. If all looks well, you can add them as a resource for benefits eligibility screening, because that's what they will be conducting. They will be assessing the member for eligibility. So that's what you will be selecting. And then you're able to create a referral. The platform is always going to give the option of sharing this information with the member. And by sharing, you can share that via email, you can print, you can text the member. So they're in the loop of the providers that you're linking them to. But you can also just move on to creating a referral. Once you click create a referral, you will get this referral description, which you can pretty much explain that member has been screened and flagged with HRSN unmet needs. Member needs to be assessed for eligibility. Because again, those screening only orgs are handing off this case to an organization in the network that is capturing step 2 in the process. And again, we're moving that out for navigation services. There's always a Unite Us consent or assessment in the middle of this process, which can be skipped. This is not SEN required. So you can skip, go to next, and then you'll see that review of referral. If everything looks accurate, you're able to confirm and submit, and you've sent out a referral for navigation. Again, this is just for organizations that are screening only. For those on this call, your organizations are providing navigation. So you're able to complete the screening with your member. They flagged with an unmet need, and instead of sending a referral, you are able to move on to step 2 of the eligibility assessment. So again, organizations that are screening only will send a referral for 1115 member navigation, so the member can be assessed for eligibility to the SEN. Most on this call are screener and navigators, so you will have visibility into both tabs, and you'll be able to move on to the eligibility assessment. Just quickly want to go back, since we will be capturing the eligibility assessment workflow in the next session. Just want to quickly call out for screening. This was the initial screen, but I did mention that members qualify for a rescreening in the case of a significant life event. So hypothetically, let's say maybe it's been a few weeks, it's been a month, and our member is now circling back around because they've lost housing. They experience a significant life event. We can now rescreen that member. And again, we'll select the 1115 AHC screening. You will capture consent. You will complete the screening. However, when you get to the end of that rescreening due to a significant life event, that would not automatically generate an invoice in the back end. So for that rescreening, you would have to open up a case and select 1115 rescreening as your program. As mentioned, rescreenings only qualify members through a significant life event. So this is a manual process in order to allow navigators and screeners to upload supporting documentation and to select the specific life event that qualifies a member. So we would select eligibility assessment. You would be able to select yourself as the worker on the case or assign someone else on your team. And then you will create the authorization. Same as the initial screen, the rescreen caps at 2 units. So that's exactly what you're pulling for your authorization, because this first step is just the authorization. So you're not invoicing just yet. This has to be created and approved by HVCC in order for you to fully open the case and invoice. So we'll create this with a short turnaround time, because ideally we will get this approved and we'll be able to go back and invoice accurately. Member rescreened due to course, you're able to upload your supporting documents. There's that Unite Us assessment that is not required for Social Care Network. You will be able to review your authorization created, and then you will submit. Once submitted, that authorization has made its way to HVCC for approval. Once that case is approved, that navigator or screener is able to go back in and invoice for those 2 units. So you'll see here that within my open case, I have this authorization that is pending a request. Once that is approved by HVCC, I would be able to add my contracted service and invoice for those 2 units of navigation. I am quickly going to do that approval in the back end so you can see what that looks like once it's approved. I'll stop sharing really quickly so I can do that in the back end, since that is not part of what you will have visibility into. So those authorizations make their way to HVCC. We have to approve them. Once that approval is completed, then it is available for the screener or navigator to jump back into that case and approve an invoice. So let me jump back into our member's case. That authorization has been approved. As you see now, I am utilizing the magnifying glass because we've worked with our member. So now my member's part of that internal case. So I'm able to quickly locate them through the magnifying glass. But that initial search, we did through that plus sign. So I'm able to jump back into that open case. Remember, this is what we're doing if we're rescreening a member. In most scenarios, we would have already been done with the screening process. The invoice is created in the back end. We move on to the eligibility assessment. But this is the example of what we'll do if we are rescreening a member due to a significant life event. As you see, I've jumped into that open case. It would be within my internal cases at this point, or you can just search for the member. You'll see here that that authorization status has now been accepted. And you see here that I now have the option to add a contracted service. What this means is I am now invoicing for that rescreening. Again, we're not doing this for the initial screen. We're only doing this for the rescreening due to a significant life event. You see here that once I indicate 25 minutes, it's already converting that into 2 units in the back end. In the original screen, we documented the minutes and it converted that into units in the back end. Date of service, we'll say this took place today. You don't need to specify time. place of service, we'll say it was in the office, qualifying life event. So this is where you're invoicing, but you're also highlighting what the specific significant life event was that is qualifying this member. So you'll see here you have a long list of qualifying events that the member can be rescreened for. Of course, a descriptive note regarding your case, and then you are able to submit your invoice for that rescreen. You would also upload supporting documents right into that open case. So it could be reviewed and it follows that open case through the authorization. So just to quickly summarize as we conclude the screening portion of the training, we located our members' ingested record through the plus sign. We searched new client and searched our member's first, last name, and date of birth. That located the member's ingested record. We were able to make any updates to demographic information, but we never update any insurance info. Just quickly pull up the number again to review as we go along. We'll search the Unitas platform for an existing record. We would use the existing record, never manually creating a record for the member. Updates to demographic information are acceptable. We are not updating insurance information, as that will update through the weekly ingestion process from the state. Once you save that client, the first go around brought us directly to capture consent. That is the first step in order to get full visibility into the member's record. Once we've captured consent, we're brought into the member's overview page. We review the member's profile, again, an opportunity to edit any demographic information. In the live environment, we're able to review if our member is part of an enhanced population, which is a requirement for eligibility for HRSN services. We'll be able to see if our member has clinical conditions or any service duplications. Other demographic information, important call out, insurance information area, which the live environment allows for real-time eligibility check through a verify insurance option. Here you'll be able to quickly indicate if your member is MCO or FFS or enrolled with an MLTC plan. You're always ensuring that members have existing social care coverage under Hudson Valley region and for screening and navigation. This social care coverage will also specify if your member's MCO or FFS, fee for service. Both members qualify to be screened and to move on to step 2 of the eligibility assessment. For those screening only orgs, we conducted the screening for our member with the 1115 AHC screening. Our member flagged with unmet needs, and those screening only orgs moved on to search for resources, find an organization that is conducting 1115 member navigation, and we were able to send a referral for navigation for this member, which you're able to track through the referrals tab. So you'll be able to see here benefits eligibility screening. Again, that eligibility word allows us to visualize that step 2. It's the eligibility assessment. You've sent out that referral, and that would be the end of the member journey on the screening only org. However, for the organizations that are also screening and navigating, you will have visibility into step 2 of the eligibility assessment. For those screening orgs and orgs that are providing both, we were able to review the rescreening of a member due to a significant life event. So the workflow initiates the same way. However, we then went in and opened up a case for 1115 rescreening due to that specific significant life event, and that allowed us to manually invoice in the scenario that our member has already been screened. We already had our initial invoice auto-generated with that initial screening, but in case the member qualifies due to a significant life event, we also completed an authorization, which was approved by HVCC, and then we were able to come in add the contracted service, and actually invoice um, for that step. You'll see here that I can no longer edit the invoice, and there is an invoice number that has been generated. So that's my verification that on my end, I've completed the full task of screening the member, invoicing, and sending out the referral. This concludes the screening process on the Unitas platform. Okay, are there any questions regarding the
We do
screening
have some
process?
in the chat, Jalissa.
Okay, okay.
Let me just scroll up. Some people were leaving their names on the chat.
Okay.
Let's see.
I'll also start pulling up the demo environment.
Yeah, so Julia asked, do we have to find our own clients or there will be call-ins?
I don't think I understand the question. If they're calling members or if they're already included in like an internal roster on the platform?
She's asking, do we have to find our own clients or are they, or would the clients be call-ins?
So it depends on the workflow that your organization is taking. So, for example, if you're scrubbing your own system and you're already working with Medicaid recipients, you can search the platform for their record as you're ready to screen and start working with the member. There is also, this workflow also allows for a member to maybe call your office. They're new, maybe they're interested in enrolling for your services, but you also take the time to inform them that there is an SEN and that they may qualify for services. That's a brand new person that you don't know, but that you can search on the platform to start the process. So I'm gonna quickly share screen. As I mentioned in the beginning of the training, all new members, whether this is someone you know internally from your org, or whether this is someone walking off the street or calling your organization, all members are initially searched through this plus sign through the new client. And that's going to ensure that we're locating the ingested record in Unitas. Um, again, to ensure that our member is eligible and has the appropriate coverage. So whether it's someone that you're already working with or someone that is new to your org, you're still searching everyone the same way. Once you locate the ingested record and you select to use this record, there's visibility into the member record to make some updates, mostly on demographic, never insurance. Once you save, we've already captured consent for this member, but that would be the first stop. So really you're searching members the same way, whether it's someone that you're pulling from your internal EHR or whether it's someone that you're just uh, supporting, they're new, and you're wanting to get them into the SEN workflow. Once you've initiated work with a member, you can utilize either the clients tab because you will now have a long list of clients that you've worked with. So you're creating that internal caseload as you go. But initially, this is going to be a clean slate. And as you build out that caseload with working with members, that's when the magnifying glass comes in handy because then you're able to quickly search the member since they're already part of that clients list. But there is no list initially created. You build that out as you work with the members. I hope that answered your question. Any other question now?
Yes, one from Lily. Does the time for units for the screening include the time it takes to search a member or just the actual phone call?
It should include not the time searching the member, but it should include the time of you explaining the program. Because as you're searching the member's record and you're maybe verifying the demographic information initially, you're capturing consent, you're explaining to the member, hey, this is step one. If you flag with an unmet need, you move on to step two to determine your eligibility. That's all information that most members are going to want to understand and ask about. So all of that conversation regarding information about the SEN and capturing consent should be incorporated into your screening time. Not so much you searching the platform, but again, if you're already working with the member and that's part of the process, but if you're pulling them up ahead of time to maybe conduct outreach, that wouldn't be appropriate to include. But if the member is in your office and you're working with them and they're discussing their needs as you're searching the record, then that could be incorporated. Any other question, Ellie?
Yes, Alex, can you show how to do the rescreening one more time?
The rescreening is well, let me maybe pull up. What was the name of that member? Penny Smith. Okay, so the rescreening process would be exactly the same in regards to selecting the screen, completing the AHC screen. The difference is how you're invoicing for that screen. Since the initial screen did generate an invoice in the back end once we completed, we didn't have to worry about that. But in that rescreening scenario where this member circled back around a few months, maybe they lost housing, they lost benefits, this has now been updated. Unitas has removed all other options for AHC screening because it was creating confusion within the SEN networks. So this is a new update where you will now just see the one option under screening. So you're still conducting the same AHC screen. It's not going to have different language of rescreening. So again, same exact workflow. Once you complete your screen, it will look exactly the same. For those of you who are taking this training as a refresher, you'll see now that screening results are to the left side of the screen. That was also an enhancement that Unitas included. It is prompting for those that are configured as navigators to open the eligibility assessment, and still gives that option of search for resources, because depending on the organization you're at, if you're screening only, you're having to send that referral for navigation. But if you are also providing navigation, you are able to move on to that step. So besides those platform changes, everything looks the same in regards to the screen. The difference is that once you've completed that, you have to open a case. And when you open a case, you're specifically opening up a case for the rescreening, which I hope I can find amongst all these cases that I've opened for the member. Okay, once you open up the case for the rescreening, the good thing is that you're going to see the naming convention that matches that workflow. You'll see NY 1115 rescreening. It would be specific to MCO if your member is MCO enrolled, or FFS, fee for service. Both members are eligible to be rescreened in case of a significant life event. Once you complete the authorization, you have to wait for approval from HVCC and then circle back around. So you would locate this case that you've opened and you're waiting up for approval within these internal cases. Open case, you can either search your member or search for this open case via the internal cases. And once it's approved by HVCC, you're able to add contracted services. So if you've already invoiced for navigation, if you've invoiced in any other workflow within the SCN, it would be the same exact way for the rescreening. The only difference is the program you're selecting to invoice under. So that rescreening program will flag that the program cap is 2, just like the initial screen. It's going to cap at those 2 units. You're only doing everything manually for this second one because you are uploading supporting documents. So you see here, if I try to add a contracted service, is letting me know that I have 0 units remaining in this authorization because I already invoiced. But you'll see here that it's asking for much more information than my usual invoices. It's going to ask what the specific life event qualifying this member was. This is going to go with that invoice. So once we review the information, the supporting notes, maybe any documents that have been uploaded to support the case. That's what we would base the approval of the invoice. So again, the screening workflow exactly the same as the initial screening, with the difference of opening a case for rescreening and manually invoicing, selecting the significant life event and uploading any supporting documents for the invoice purposes. Any other questions, Nellie?
Yes, we have one from Dale. I work primarily with homeless persons in the field. Can they be assessed through this platform in the field?
Yes, if you have the equipment to support and these members are Medicaid eligible, you should be able to search them through the plus sign. Unitas is ingesting a Medicaid eligibility file for the Hudson Valley region. So if you cannot locate a member through this workflow, it's most likely linked to the member not being Medicaid eligible or the member's address being linked to another region outside of the Hudson Valley. For those of you who have e-paces, if you can't locate the record, running an e-paces search will give you more information. We sometimes find that the member's address has been updated, but the county is still being flagged as NYC or a county outside of the 7 counties within the Hudson Valley that HVCC serves. So in those instances, if the member's reporting, well, I now live in the Hudson Valley, it'll just be a matter of them updating that information with the marketplace, with the Medicaid marketplace, and that information will then eventually be ingested into Unitas, since that Medicaid eligibility file is being pulled on a weekly basis. That may be a scenario where you're circling back around to that member once you can locate an ingested record. Because even though the system gives us an option to create a record, that is not configured for SEN work. Unitas is a large platform that works with many vendors and many different workflows and states and so forth. So they do have features that are not necessarily relevant to our workflow. So the creating new client is one of those features. Once you locate the record, you're able to proceed. So whether the member's homeless in a shelter, as long as your equipment's able to support the remote work, you're able to locate them on the platform and initiate the workflow. Any other questions, Nellie?
Yeah, we have a few. Another one from Anna. Can we be our own interpreters, or is there a specific number we need to direct them?
No, you can be your own interpreter. There's staff in your office that speak the language. If you conducted the screening in that other language, you're able to select that. So no specific criteria that would have to be pulled for that interpreter in the case that one was used. Or credentials, I should
Marcel,
say.
oh, sorry. Marcel
No, no,
asks,
no.
can you explain again about the invoice in the screening? But again, this is for the rescreening.
Right, as I mentioned, the initial screen, when you screen a member for the first time, you don't have to worry about invoicing because it's going to generate an invoice in the back end. Based on the number of minutes that you've selected, it will convert this into a 1-unit invoice at $17.50 or a 2-unit invoice at $35. This invoice, this example I have up, will be generated for 2 units, $35 based on my selection of 25 minutes. However, if we've already screened the member and our member experiences the significant life event, we will rescreen. We're not going to see a screen that says rescreen, so the language remains the same, the tool remains the same. You are just conducting a second screen and you are opening a case. Once we open cases, so I'll kind of show you the visual. It wouldn't let me do it because I've already have an open case for this program. But once you come into programs to select this rescreening, you will see the option as one of those drop downs. Again, it's specific to the member's insurance coverage. So you will see NY 1115 rescreening, MCO if your member is MCO enrolled, or FFS if this is a member that's fee for service. Members that have the dual coverage, Medicaid, Medicare, and a third party insurance are categorized as fee for service. Just want to call that out. But again, the rescreening program would be specific to your members' coverage. You would select benefit eligibility. You select yourself as the worker, and you will pull an authorization for up to the 2 units that you have available. This will not allow me to complete it because I've already capped out those units in my previous invoice. But you're manually doing this. Once you send off this authorization, you're waiting for HVCC to approve. Once we approve, you're able to go back in and you'll see the updated status of accepted. And now this add new contracted service, which was originally grayed out until we got the approval, we can now click into that and complete our invoice. We previously had the 2 units, so you're able to say, again, 30 minutes. This will obviously not work because I've already invoiced. Place of service. Qualifying life event, maybe our member was arrested, detailed note, and you do have the option of adding a supporting document within that authorization for additional verification of significant life event. Once you submit for review, you would have generated an invoice, which I'll show you how that looks like once it's completed. So then this would be our invoice. You'll have an invoice number that's created. It'll say submitted. You won't have the option to edit. This remains internal until the invoice admin at my organization approves it, and then it's sent over to HVCC for reimbursement. So all invoices remain internal until the invoice admin, whoever's got the invoice tab at your organization, reviews and approves. That is the workflow that we review at the 3rd session, which is the contracted partners training. We take action on contracted referrals, and we invoice for those contracted service. As invoice admins, we go in and we approve and reject those invoices. But this is how you would invoice for a rescreening. Any other questions, Nelly? I know we're coming close to time.
Yes, there's a few in the chat, honestly, just so it might take longer than the 11 a.m. mark. But the next one would be from Sloan. Is housing a change in life for a new assessment only after homeless, or just by a possibility of homeless, like getting eviction notice?
At risk is not a significant life event. The member would have had to lose housing to be considered a significant life event. Any other questions?
Jessica, after screening process for eligibility, how long does it take to receive approval in order to invoice?
The question was approval for the rescreening?
Yeah, so after a screening process for eligibility, how long does it take to receive approval in order to invoice?
So that sounds
Didn't
a
really
little
understand the
confusing.
question.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit confusing. I guess in this scenario where we're rescreening the member, we're trying to move through authorizations. I'm not sure if this is a question based on the authorization. You do have to wait for HVCC approval in order to do the manual invoice. So that ideally takes us 2 to 3 business days, but as most of the network knows, we are in a staffing transition. So we are delayed maybe closer to 2 to 3 weeks in authorizations. So this is something that you would probably have to circle back around 2 weeks from that time to submit the invoice. If you were to submit this today, hopefully by February and we're all caught up, this is all streamlined up much quicker. But you are still able to screen the member. You're just waiting for this approval for the invoicing portion of it. So this is kind of a circling back around, but the member would have already informed you of what the significant life event, provided you with the, proving documents. You're just uploading that and submitting that with your invoice, but you don't necessarily have to hold up the screening process for the member, as the screening tool doesn't require the approval.
2 to 3 weeks.
Next question. Are referrals able to be
Oh, you're breaking up, Nelly.
are referrals able to be contacted if we refer a client for services or a resource, or is that advice to check up on a referral after some time of not hearing back?
So remember, everyone, this is just the screening portion of the workflow. So technically, you are not sending referrals yet unless you're a screening only org. If you sent a referral to an organization to move on, to provide navigation for the member, that's one thing. So that's one scenario, and that should be the only referral you've sent if you're a screening only org. If you are screening and navigating, then we're capturing that workflow in the next session, because we move on to the eligibility assessment, determine the member's eligibility, whether level 1 or level 2 enhanced, and we send referrals based on their eligibility. So following the screening, you shouldn't really be tracking referral journey because you're still not done with the workflow. We haven't determined the member's eligibility. In the case you're just screening, the one and only referral you are tracking is that for navigation, which if it is rejected, you are able to recall and redirect to another organization. So if you get notice that your referral for navigation was rejected, you can go up to find resources and browse 1115 member navigation on platform and send a referral to another organization. But again, at this point in the workflow, only one referral in the case your organization does not provide navigation and is a screening only org. Okay. Nelly, next question. I know we're past time at this point. So for those of you that need to hop off, or those that want to sit around and hear the response to these questions, you're more than welcome to. We'll give it at least another 5 minutes to respond to these questions, and then we will have to wrap up. Okay, Nelly.
Yeah, from Julia. Parents express concerns on harming their child, but wants to get assistance in managing their mental health. What should we do in that scenario?
Can you repeat that?
If a parent expresses concerns on harming their child, but wants to get assistance in managing their mental health, what should we do in that scenario?
You should report if the parent is, yeah, and I think this is a little bit beyond the scope of the social care network, but if you're screening a parent that has reported thoughts of hurting their child, we're all mandated reporters on this call. So you would have to absolutely report that. And of course, assist the parent with that mental health support. But I think that maybe, alerting the appropriate authorities to make sure that that child is not harmed if someone is reporting that, and that seems to be kind of a symptomatic episode that the member may be. I would shift gears into mandated reporter instead of prioritizing the screen, because I would want to make sure that the child is safe, but of course focusing the support on what the member has flagged themselves, which is their mental health. So hopefully this is a very complex scenario, which I would hope everyone's kind of connecting with their internal supervisors and making sure that there's a safe way of making this connection. But I would probably report if there is any indication that there's abuse or neglect of a child happening.
And then last question. My apologies in advance if you already mentioned this, but is this training being recorded? Is there a way I can access it at a later date?
The recording sessions will be uploaded in Docebo, so you would have access to that walkthrough that we just reviewed for refresher purposes. We know that a lot of folks do join these sessions more for refresher purposes, when it's not really necessary. So we want to give you guys a resource to just go back and you know receive that review, but we will still continue to host this live session component for those new users to ask question and have something a little more dynamic with the demo environment available.
Okay.
But yes, this session,
She was a little child.
these sessions will be uploaded into Docebo for existing users, for those that have already completed trainings and have platform access.
That's the first training that we're supposed to take. And that girl with
Someone asked, how can you
a lot of Jews on it.
Oh, sorry, Nelly, you broke up again. What?
Yeah, how can you find this?
I think it was how can you find this recording? It would be available via Docebo, so everyone has login credentials. That's the platform where you completed your onboarding trainings. For those of you who are new users and are still pending trainings, that's the platform where we have the Medicaid waste, fraud, and abuse, HIPAA, trauma-informed care, all of those trainings, but we will have these sessions uploaded for refresher purposes. Again, for new users, it will still be a requirement for them to participate in a live session like this one. However, for existing users, there will be recordings as an additional resource. I believe that was
Yeah, I was
it.
just responding to one of the chats. Someone just asked, just wanted to confirm for the navigation training, where can I receive the registration link?
The registration links were shared on the Monday emails for the SEN week of the 12th and the SEN week of the 19th. So supervisors and leadership at your org should have received that email with the information. Nelly, are you able to, let me see, I think I can maybe pull it from.
Yeah, I was going to throw it in the chat.
Okay, you are?
Yes, I'm just trying to find it.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Okay, any other questions before we wrap up? Nelly is, we'll be adding that training info in the chat. Okay, shortly, and I believe, and does our next session start? Yeah. So we'll be back on in about 54 minutes. So Nelly, as soon as you drop that, we can close out. Okay, I see it.
Sure.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining the screener training for the Unitas platform, SEN workflow. We will be resuming at noon with the navigation portion of the workflow. So picking up where we left off here to conduct an eligibility assessment and send referrals for our member. Thank you very much, and I'll see most of you in the next session.